We want to turn now to the Republicans' pledge to America, their blueprint for what many say will get America back on track. And we want to bring in Utah Congressman and one of the architects of the pledge, Jason Chaffetz, who joins us by phone. Congressman, thanks for joining us. First of all, tell me, what's this about? What is the party trying to do here?
We want it to be, thanks for having me on, by the way. We want to give clarity about what we would do, the pledge that we're making to America, things that we should be working on right now, here today, not just waiting for January. Oftentimes you hear the Democrats say they have no plan, it's just the party of no. Well, I don't think they can necessarily say that anymore. This is a detailed plan. It's got meat on the bones. It's not a party platform. It doesn't have everything under the sun, but first things first, we ought to be doing this, and we ought to be acting on it right now. One
of the writers in the Washington Post this morning said now the party can be looked at as the party of stop, because as he relayed this information, he said you want to roll back the Obama health care plan, which you do. You want to freeze spending. You want to roll back to the 2008 era for fiscal management. Is that a fair characterization, the party of stop?
Partly. I mean, I think most people believe that we're spending, taxing, and borrowing too much money. We're showing a reasonable way to save the government hundreds of billions of dollars. For instance, if you stop spending the stimulus dollars, that'll save $200 billion right there. If you simply go back to the fiscal year 2008, you'll save $100 billion, or $1 trillion over 10 years. So there are a number of simple, easy things that we think would also work in a very bipartisan way. But there's also some just ways that we want to change the way we do business, like giving 72 hours for people to read the bill, not only members of Congress, but people in the public. But you would think that's revolutionary, but I'm just a freshman here, and I can tell you that's never happened. That doesn't happen.
But let me ask you this, though. I mean, these ideas may appeal to your base, but how are you going to pay for all this? By some estimates, it'll cost $4 trillion, or add $4 trillion to the deficit to keep these tax cuts in place. I mean, how do you pay for that?
I have no idea where this $4 trillion comes out. It sounds like an absurd, ridiculous number. Look, if they're talking about the Bush tax cuts, we have two choices. We can maintain the status quo and not raise taxes, or do what some Democrats are suggesting, which is raise taxes. We don't want to raise taxes. We want to cut spending. We want to create regulatory certainty. I think that's one of the overarching themes of this, is that one of the reasons our economy is not thriving is the fact that there's so much regulatory uncertainty. Capital is resistant to make investment because they don't know what's going to happen with taxes. They don't understand how the health care plan works. They're worried that cap and trade is going to get instituted. They don't know what's going to happen with the so-called Bush tax cuts. With so much uncertainty, business is reluctant to make investment. When they're reluctant to make investment, they're reluctant to hire new people.
Now, Democrats have complained that what the Republicans want to do here is return to failed policies that put us in a fiscal mess to start with. And isn't it true that under Republican leadership on the Hill, that the deficits did go up? Spending was, in some cases, a bit out of control. Do you plead guilty on that point?
Oh, look, hey, I'm a freshman here. I beat out a 12-year incumbent Republican based on that very fact, that they were not conservative enough, that we were spending and borrowing too much money. But under Democratic leadership in the House with Nancy Pelosi, we're 4 times greater than what George Bush was doing. So you can't really argue change and then do 4 times as much spending as what was going on when the Republicans controlled the House.
Well, let me ask you this, though, on that point. Why should voters take you at your word here? I mean, when the Republicans did have control, they didn't exercise the fiscal restraint you talk about now. So what's changed? What makes it this time give us another shot?
Well, I think there was an admission. You see it right in the preamble and what was talked about in the plan, in the pledge, which was these mistakes have been made over a 10-year period. There's bipartisan blame here. But we're trying to be the responsible adults in the room and let people know this is what we think should happen. And again, if it was left up to me, I would make the cuts deeper. But to say, look, let's just go back to 2008 spending levels. That, to me, is something that's very reasonable and would save $100 billion. That, I think, would would allow an opportunity for a serious Democrat to look at it and say, okay, that's reasonable. We're not just going to cut everything under the sun.
And finally,
even though some of us would like to go deeper.
And just to play devil's advocate here, I mean, the timing, you can't miss the timing, and we're just about a month or so ahead of the election. Also, we saw Leader Boehner come out with others. They had their ties off. They looked like, frankly, looked like people that just took the ties off for a photo op. Why shouldn't people be a little skeptical or cynical here?
I think a healthy skepticism is fine. I want people to look at it, read each point, and what I want to hear from the Democrats is, where do you disagree with it and why? I'm happy to have that debate. Let's go point by point, and let's compare their plan. I don't know exactly what their plan was. I was one of the presenters. Yeah, we were out at a lumber store, so I wore jeans and a sport coat, took off the tie. But look, this is, and part of the reason I think they put me up there as opposed to some others is we have a number of new people, and we got a whole host of new people that are going to come in January. So it's a little bit different than what's done in the past. We got to change the way we do business. That's part of the theme. Thanks
for your time today. I do want to ask you, though, one last point about the story of the day, Stephen Colbert on the Hill. I mean, Congress already has, if you look at the polls, a bit of a credibility problem with the public. Neither side scores well in the approval ratings. Does this kind of hearing help? What do you make of this?
Well, I'm on the immigration subcommittee, and I decided to come to my home district. I actually got work to do. Look, he's the best fake best fake newscaster there is, and so if they're going to have a fake hearing, I guess he's the guy to do it. What's sad about it is, on the 21 months I've been on the immigration subcommittee, we've only met 10 times. We have never looked at a substantive bill to deal with the immigration issue. And then they call it Stephen Colbert. I mean, it just sort of solidifies the fact that the Democrats who control the gavel, they control who comes up there, really aren't serious about fixing this thing.
I have to point out, though, some of your Republican colleagues did attend the hearing. I mean, did anyone talk about, let's just not go to this? This isn't serious?
No, look, they show up, and that's fine. Try to ask a few questions, but it's just a joke. It was intended to be a joke, and it's unfortunate because I've sponsored close to a dozen bills that deal seriously with immigration. None of them have been brought up for discussion. None. And yet, the Democratic chairwoman, she brings up a comedian. It shows it may be fun and people may want to get their picture taken, but it's sad because immigration's broken, and I think people on both sides of the aisle really want to fix it. But we can't when we have these kind of antics happening in Congress.
All right, Congressman Jason Chaffetz from Utah, thanks very much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.